At the end of the snapshot video, I asked you to reflect in your journal on the following questions. How does the teacher use cross-comparison charts to provoke student thinking? How does the teacher use questioning techniques to scaffold understanding towards the target generalization? What elements of student choice do you see in this snapshot? And finally, how is this approach similar or different from how you use questioning in your own classroom? I hope you had a chance to jot down some of your ideas. Let's begin our debrief by talking about questioning techniques. Did you notice how the teacher used both factual, conceptual, and debatable questions to help guide student thinking through the cross-comparison chart organizer? Using factual, conceptual, and sometimes debatable guiding questions engages synergistic thinking, moving it beyond the level of facts and skills towards the higher level of conceptual understandings. It's really the interactive energy as students move between the factual and conceptual levels of thinking. Guiding questions are used to scaffold student understanding towards the generalization. In a concept-based unit, you will have 3 to 5 factual and conceptual guiding questions per generalization. You might have 1 to 2 debatable questions in the entire unit. In order to reach the understanding that writers show how stories unfold through a series of episodes that move the plot towards resolution, the teacher carefully wrote factual, conceptual, and debatable questions that would lead to that understanding. In order for students to be able to understand that stories unfold through episodes that lead to a resolution, they first need to ask themselves what happened in the story, and then break that down to what happened in that particular episode in the story. Then they need to determine which characters were involved in the event. Once they've determined that, they move on to determining if the event had a significant effect on the characters. If yes, they move to the next factual question. Did the event change the direction of the story? And how do you know? Once they're done with their analysis through the factual questions, they move to the debatable question. What is the turning or tipping point of the plot? As you saw in the snapshot, there was a lot of debate as students agreed and disagreed on the particular climax of the story. Finally, students are ready to move from specific to general as they answer the conceptual question, how do writers develop a story's plot so that it moves towards a resolution? They repeat this questioning process with 2 other stories. This allows students to see the patterns and generalize. A concept-based teacher is intentional and strategic about the use of guiding questions to nudge students down the path to realizing a generalization. The questions help students slowly and in steps scaffold their thinking towards the generalization. In a typical traditional classroom, the students might have discussed these same questions as a group. The difference in a 3-dimensional conceptual classroom is that the class spends time exploring and discovering patterns across multiple texts to be able to generalize towards an understanding. In addition to questioning techniques, I really like how this teacher promoted student choice in the snapshot. There are so many ways we can optimize student choice in our lessons. In this classroom snapshot, the use of multiple short stories encourages engagement and motivation. Students and adults alike are more motivated when we can pick what we read. Don't tell anyone this, but even though I ended up studying English literature in college, I had a tough time reading the selections my teachers and professors chose for me. When I got to choose the text, I was a lot more motivated to finish it. I know my Kindle would definitely attest to how many books I've read independently. The same is true with our students. Providing choice to students recruits their interest and increases engagement. Motivated readers read more, and that's our goal. Multiple texts also help students to identify patterns. This is so important in our concept-based classrooms. In addition to offering multiple options for students from the text they selected, the teacher also offered choice in how students explored the text by reading or listening to it, and they could decide to work either independently or collaboratively. So as you can see, in just this small moment in the classroom, the teacher optimized student choice to increase motivation and engagement and to promote conceptual thinking. Student choice was done in an authentic manner rather than just as a token tribute. Now, if the idea of using multiple texts seems a bit overwhelming, don't worry, I have some ideas for you. In this classroom, the teacher used a case study approach with the mentor texts. Concept-based inquiry and action provides some considerations that help teachers leverage a case study approach effectively to increase student learning. When investigating concepts, students begin by exploring factual examples as a way to see concepts in a variety of contexts. In order to truly understand a concept or a conceptual idea, students must be exposed to multiple examples. And ultimately, if we want students to effectively generalize, we must expose them to a variety of examples. A case study approach can help us provide multiple examples in a structured and organized way. Let's talk in depth about this particular case study. In this lesson, the teacher used what's called a modeled case study approach using the mentor text, The Necklace. A modeled case study approach is where the whole class investigates the same case study in a structured manner, followed by independent or small group inquiries into additional case studies connected to unit concepts. The mentor text case study is carefully selected to ensure that it aligns with the conceptual understanding of the unit. The text must provide students with a clear example of the concepts and conceptual ideas under investigation. By completing the first case study together, the teacher is able to make explicit connections, references, and scaffold appropriately. Next, through a gradual release of responsibility, students get to select other short stories to analyze in the same way they analyze the necklace together as a class. The teacher pre-selected a variety of short stories from various genres that reflect her students' interest. She knows there are some who like science fiction, others like historical fiction, while others like contemporary fiction. This helps motivate student choice. We know that too much choice can be overwhelming for some of our students. Offering choice within constraints is a fantastic approach that works well with all ages. The initial mentor text, The Necklace, continues to provide an example for discussion and acts as a reference for the new case studies. So how do we help students organize all their thinking when using case studies? Did you notice how the teacher uses an organizer to focus and organize the class's thinking? Organizers are a great tool to help focus students' thinking at both the factual and conceptual level while lightening the cognitive load and maximizing the capacity of students' working memory. In this classroom snapshot, the teacher uses a cross-comparison chart during the lesson. Concept-based inquiry and action provides some considerations that help teachers leverage organizers to effectively navigate the information they gather through their investigations. Giving students the opportunity to focus their thinking through the use of organizers allows connections to be established between different ideas. Organizing information provides students with the scaffolding they need to see patterns and understand relationships between concepts. Organizers do not need to be complicated or elaborate. They are simply a means to facilitate synergistic thinking, create meaning, and reduce the cognitive load of a task. The cross-comparison chart, as used in the classroom snapshot, is a super versatile technique, and it's actually one of my favorite types of organizers. Let's talk more about cross-comparison charts. The cross-comparison chart was used to record information using the guiding questions. It unpacked the conceptual understandings by using the guiding question as the column headers, while the class worked together to fill in examples from the shared reading text. You can see there are multiple rows that students use to add ideas as they revisit the shared reading text, or even as they read a new text independently or in their groups. The cross-comparison chart helps keep all of the details organized, and it presents information in a way that makes it easier for students to notice patterns. Cross-comparison charts can be used independently, collaboratively, or as a whole class and do not need to be completed in one learning engagement. Okay, I think that's enough for now. I really talked a lot at you today. In your journal, capture your own ideas that were inspired by this classroom snapshot. Think about your own classroom. How might you promote student choice? How do you reduce student cognitive load by using graphic organizers that help organize thinking? How do you use questioning techniques to scaffold learning towards an understanding? How can you incorporate case studies in your literacy classroom? What other ideas does this classroom snapshot inspire? Take some time now to add your ideas to your journal while they're still fresh in your mind. You can also jot down any questions or things you might be wondering about. When you're ready, in the next classroom snapshot, we will visit a 9th grade classroom and work a bit more on grammar.